Okay, picture the global tech sector as this massive, glittering theater stage. Right up front, basking in the spotlight, you've got the superstars, the ones making the chips that power our smartphones, our cars, and of course, the entire AI boom. But what if I told you there's a genius pulling the strings from the shadows, like the actual Phantom of the Opera, but for semiconductors? That phantom is Synopsys. Today, we're diving straight into an explainer on how this invisible force secretly orchestrates the entire global chip market. And we're going to use a super powerful business strategy lens to decode exactly how they built this completely impenetrable moat. Just like the phantom lurking beneath the Paris Opera House, Synopsys almost never takes a bow for the general public. But they literally hold the technological strings and the absolute lifeline for the spotlight-stealing giants of our era. We're talking NVIDIA, Apple, Intel, the semiconductor heavyweights we hear about every single day. They are totally inextricably tied to Synopsys. Without this invisible puppeteer, modern chip design would basically just stop. It is actually physically impossible to design today's chips with their billions of microscopic transistors without them. To really grasp their power, we need to look back at this massive revolution they kicked off. Decades ago, chip design was grueling. Engineers were basically drawing transistor layouts by hand on early computer-aided design tools. It took months. It was painstaking. But then, Synopsys drops their revolutionary design compiler and introduces logic synthesis. Suddenly, an engineer could just type out code describing what the chip needs to do, and the software would automatically translate that into a physical gate-level layout. Crazy, right? This single innovation locked in an unbelievable 90% market monopoly in digital chip synthesis. They totally freed engineers from the manual grind and, honestly, kind of kept Moore's Law alive in the process. So how exactly have they kept this absolute stranglehold on the market for decades? Well, let's look at this through the VRIO framework. If you're a strategy nerd, you know this is the ultimate tool for figuring out how a company builds a sustainable competitive advantage from the inside out. Instead of just looking at outside market forces, VRIO forces us to look internally at a company's unique, built-in resources. Let's quickly break down those 4 pillars of VRIO, just to give us a roadmap for digesting all this. First, is a resource valuable? Like, does it actively exploit an opportunity or neutralize a threat? Second, is it rare? Do only a handful of players have it? Third, is it inimitable? Basically, is it ridiculously expensive or just flat out impossible for someone else to copy? And finally, is the company actually organized to capture that value? Hit all 4, and you don't just have an edge, you have a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, check out this staggering number, a 79.7% gross margin in fiscal year 2024. This brilliantly nails both the valuable and organized pillars. I mean, when you provide an absolute, literal necessity to the richest tech companies on the planet, and you deliver it via software subscriptions, you're getting massive recurring revenue that brings incredible economies of scale and wild pricing power. They are perfectly organized to extract maximum value from tools their customers just can't live without. But what about the rare pillar? Take a second to process this massive metric from Synopsys' founder, Aart de Geus. Over 37 years, they've boosted chip design productivity by roughly 10 million times. 10 million! This just goes to show how their internal resources compound over time to deliver unprecedented value. You can't just throw $1 billion at a random Silicon Valley startup today and expect to recreate 37 years of grueling generational learning across every single shrinking nanometer node. That kind of time-tested accumulation of knowledge is exceptionally rare. Which brings us to the inimitable pillar. Why can't a competitor just copy them? Well, they face 3 massive brick walls. First is path dependency. Their algorithms are built on 38 years of sequential history. A bug fix from 1995 or 2005, it's baked into today's code. Second, there's causal ambiguity. Even if you wanted to copy them, what exactly are you copying? The code, the engineers, the massive data flywheel? It's just too tangled to decipher. And third is social complexity. Synopsys has this incredibly deep, multi-decade trust with mega foundries like TSMC and Samsung, the places that physically build the chips. You absolutely cannot buy that level of integration overnight. Now, Synopsys isn't just coasting on its legacy here. We got to look at how they fiercely protect this moat. They're pouring up to 34% of their revenue right back into R&D. In fiscal 2024 alone, that was over $2 billion. This absolute beast of an R&D engine fuels their continuous innovation, like the Synopsys.ai suite. They're using AI to automatically optimize designs, verify code, and test layouts. Get this, they are literally using AI to design the exact chips that will run tomorrow's AI. It's brilliant. So here is the absolute clincher, the ecosystem lock-in. Their top 10 customers have stuck with them for an average of over 2 decades. Why? Because the switching costs are practically insurmountable. If a major semiconductor giant decided to just rip out Synopsys' electronic design automation, or EDA tools, they'd have to retrain thousands of engineers and rewrite decades of internal workflows, all while risking catastrophic billion-dollar failures on their new chip projects. The risk of switching is just way, way too high. And there's another totally brilliant layer to this strategy beyond just the software tools, their designware IP. See, instead of a customer building a standard USB or PCIe interface entirely from scratch, Synopsys just sells them a pre-verified silicon-proven blueprint. Boom. The client saves millions of dollars and years of dev time. But the real genius for Synopsys? It intertwines them permanently into the customer's internal design process. You aren't just using their pen to draw, you are building your entire house out of their pre-made bricks. So why does all this matter right now? Think about the colossal data centers powering, well, basically everything today. This entrenched position makes Synopsys the totally indispensable foundation for the entire AI and high-performance computing revolution. Every massive generative AI breakthrough you see, every giant server farm being built, it all relies on silicon that was designed, simulated, and verified using Synopsys' hidden infrastructure. They are the absolute bedrock of this new era of intelligence. But this invisible phantom isn't just sitting behind its moat, it's actively expanding the kingdom. Recently, in a massive $35 billion power move, Synopsys acquired Ansys. While Synopsys rules the electronic design of the chip itself, Ansys dominates multi-physics simulation, stuff like thermal dynamics, structural integrity, electromagnetic interference. By merging the two, they're perfectly positioning themselves for the new era of complex, software-defined systems. Think advanced electric vehicles and next-gen aerospace tech. And the strategic logic here is just undeniable. The Ansys merger expands Synopsys' total addressable market, or TAM, by 1.5 times. They're leaping from a $12 billion EDA market straight into a $28 billion silicon to systems empire. They aren't just helping you design the microchip anymore. They're helping you simulate exactly how that chip is going to physically perform when it's shoved inside a speeding car or a blazing hot data center rack. When we pull all these VRIO threads together, we uncover this ultimate self-reinforcing dynamic. It works like this. Using their EDA tools naturally drives customers to buy their IP blocks. Embedding those IP blocks creates insanely high switching costs. Those switching costs practically guarantee subscription-like recurring revenue. And that massive, predictable river of cash funds an unstoppable R&D flywheel, keeping them years ahead of any potential rival. It just feeds itself continuously. So we've seen the 38 years of path-dependent history. We've seen the billions poured into R&D, the multi-decade customer lock-ins, and this massive leap from silicon to whole systems. Looking at this meticulously constructed Rio fortress, you really have to wonder, can any competitor realistically break a moat built on almost 40 decades of history and absolute customer lock-in? Or is the semiconductor industry's invisible phantom simply invincible? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems running behind the scenes.